Okay, it's recording.
This is my second try. Okay, so I'm going to be going over the radio usage review. This is part of the in-service training. It's really not a big deal. So it's probably not anything you guys don't know, hopefully. Okay, so the meaning of this is to educate and remind officers on proper radio usage and minimize radio usage errors and delays as much as possible. Obviously, it's still going to happen. The radios we have are pretty old, but we want to try to minimize that as much as possible. So the goal is, by the end of the presentation, officers will understand and demonstrate how to properly and effectively communicate on the radios regardless of the situation you guys find yourselves in. So the first thing is, it's important that everyone familiarizes themselves with the lingo. And what I mean by that is the 10 codes, specifically the 10 codes that we use here. The 10 codes that we use are based off of Portland Police Bureaus. And then the phonetic alphabet. The ones we use are the common law enforcement ones. You can use the military ones, the NATO phonetic alphabet, that's perfectly fine. But if you don't know it, don't try and wing it. It's just going to confuse everyone. So don't misuse a 10 code, just use plain talk. Same with the phonetic alphabet. If you don't know the phonetic alphabet, don't try and wing it. It's just going to confuse people and tie up unnecessary radio traffic. So this is the list of all the 10 codes that, not necessarily that we use, but the ones that we use are highlighted and bolded. Can't really see it on the projector, but at the end of this, if you guys want, I can print it out and you guys can keep. So it's good to know the common ones like 10.1, 10.2, etc. Yeah. Same with the phonetic alphabet. It's good to memorize that if you don't already know it. The reason why I like the phonetic alphabet is letters such as D, A, and B can be misunderstood very easily, especially on the radio. It's hard enough in person. But if you better differentiate it with David or boy, we know exactly what you're talking about. Now, using the radio, again, it's important that you familiarize yourself with the radio. The lapel mic has the PTT, the push-to-talk button, as well as the mobile itself. So there's two PTT buttons. If you're carrying a lapel mic, don't press the PTT on the mobile. Some people will do that, thinking that it will free up you'll be able to communicate on the lapel mic. It doesn't. You're only going to transmit on the mobile itself. So if you're wanting to key up, use the lapel mic. What I like to recommend people to remember is KHT and SHR. So key, hesitate, talk. That's before you're about to transmit. And then when you're about to end your broadcast, stop, hesitate, release. It's really important that you don't let go right before you're going to end, so you don't clip yourself. Same with when you're about to key up. If you key up, if you don't press and hold it, you're going to clip yourself. You're going to cut yourself off. So hold the PTT button down for at least 1 to 2 seconds. Very important. Before you transmit, before you broadcast, know what you're going to say before you say it. Think before you talk. Don't key up. Don't know what you're going to say. It just ties up the radio. And then leave transmissions short and sweet to the point. Don't have very open-ended broadcasts. Say what you need to say in a transmission as short as possible. And then transmissions really shouldn't be longer than 30 seconds. If they are, which doesn't really happen often, if they're more than 30 seconds, In between that, after 30 seconds, or say break, let go, and then go ahead and resume your traffic.
And when you do that, give it a few seconds for somebody else if they needed to key
Yeah.
up. Don't just break, let up, and then immediately
Exactly.
key back
The
up.
purpose of that, yeah, the purpose of that is in case another officer needs to go out on the radio, they have that opportunity. Like I said, when keying up, hold the button down for 1 to 2 seconds before speaking so you don't clip yourself. Speak into the mic. Super, super important that you speak into the mic. Some people don't like to speak into the mic. I know some officers will have their lapel mic on their shoulder or in front of them. Tilt your head down or to your left, right, whatever, and speak into it. Because there's so, especially here in downtown, so much background noise with the trains and all that stuff. So please speak into the mic. Use a normal, audible voice. Don't yell. Don't whisper. Don't talk too fast. And it's pretty simple stuff. And then before you key up, make sure the channel is clear. You don't want to interrupt somebody who's talking, especially if they have important information. So when trying to reach dispatch, state your unit number. If you're 451 and you're trying to reach dispatch, if you're trying to reach base, say 451, and just wait in line, and then I'll acknowledge you, tell you to go ahead. Don't say 451, I'm going to be here, blah, 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 unless there is an exception to that. If it's an emergency, if you're out with one, if you're challenging one, by all means. But if you're doing if you're requesting a cleanup, please don't do that. I'm only going to probably catch the last half of it. When an officer is in an emergency situation, such as the use of force, somebody with a weapon, or you're challenging somebody, let the officer have the air. Try and stay off the radio as much as possible. I honestly, as the dispatcher, I don't need to know if you're en route to that. I want to be hearing the officer's transmissions. And it's important that the officer, that the primary officer in that situation has the radio so that they can communicate with the supervisor, communicate with me, whatever. Like I said, in a high priority incident, emergency situation, cleanup requests can wait. If it's really that important to you that they get done, you can write them down, give them to me at a later time. But not only that, just hold off on emergency just hold off on non-emergency traffic when a situation's unfolding. I don't call out on lunch, stuff like that. If something's going down, if somebody's out with someone who has a warrant, stuff like that.
And if you know something like that's going on, don't call the office phone, because then the dispatcher has to pick up the phone and try to be on the radio.
Yeah, and it's just something else I have to do. It's more of a distraction for me. Honestly, when something like that is unfolding, a high priority incident, I'm not even worried about the phone. The phone comes last. Officer safety is number one. So, I mean, it's happened quite a few times. The phone will ring, the office phone will ring, and I'll pick it up and put it on hold. I'm not, that's like the least of my concern. My first concern is officer safety. So yeah. And then before transmitting, know where you're at. Super, super important. If I call on you, you need to say I call on 451, and they say 451. I'm at so and so. I'm at 5th and Flanders, whatever. I need to know that, so I can make sure I'm sending a unit, the closest available unit. And then requesting a cleanup, I need to know the exact address, or in the or at least the 100 block, the nearest 100 block. Intersections don't really help me with the system I have. And then when inside a garage, patrolling a garage, when you call out with one, I really need to know the direction, or not the direction, the corner and the level you're Jefferson. Say you're at 10th and Yamhill, I want to know you're at the 9th and Morrison side, level 4, like that. I think everyone, does that for the most part, but it's just a reminder to keep doing that. And then I'm going to share with you an example of good radio usage. This is when I was a 911 dispatcher at my old agency. You guys can, listen to me, of course, but this is a audio clip of a pursuit that I was broadcasting, and I really want you guys to listen to the officer in this scenario. He was broadcasting it very, very well. He was clear. He wasn't, I'm sure he was excited, but he didn't show that. I didn't really have to have him repeat more than once. So it's only like a 2-minute long audio clip.
This harassment that's occurring on Matthew Drive.
Yeah, 3432-027, in Ackerson North, 962, Nora John Williams.
32.
To Date Street.
32 Keaton, I'm sorry.
Taylor, eastbound on Tate.
Eastbound Tate. Are you in pursuit?
Wright County, southbound Bell, for police. Male.
Clear, southbound Bell. Attention all our county units. 3422, then pursuit southbound Bell. Through Tate.
Westbound on North, southbound on Bell, yeah. 962, Nora John Williams.
Police outside of them.
Still northbound from Havens.
Northbound Havens. Southbound Havens.
And we're gonna go east on Jefferson.
East on Jefferson for Monroe.
On all units, two KPD officers in a pursuit, we get involved. Going east on Taylor,
East on Taylor from Shay.
North Bridge, Ohio. And we're southbound Elphus.
Elphus from Taylor. East on.
Okay. And the other good thing to take away from that too is you only really heard me and the officer that was broadcasting the pursuit, but there was more than us involved in that situation. There were other officers that you didn't hear that were putting down stop sticks. They didn't necessarily need to, say that. They were just there because it was at that time the most important thing was communication between me and the officer that was actually pursuing the suspect. But I think that kind of applies when you guys are out on patrol as well. I don't necessarily need to know that you're, headed over here to back up so-and-so. If you guys are on scene, that's great. I just want to basically know the primary officer. I really want to know what's going on with that officer, if that makes sense.
This harassment that's occurring on Matthew.
I don't really have examples of bad radio usage, except in scenarios like that, I've had officers that are the opposite, not really calm, and it's understandable. It's a very high-stress situation, very exciting, and a lot of officers don't even realize their voice starts to change. It goes really high, and it sounds like they're screaming like little girls, but it's understandable. But just it's something to keep in mind, to remember when in a high stress situation, you're probably not going to really hear yourself. I'm going to hear you, but I'm not necessarily going to understand what you're saying. Other things to keep in mind, hot mics, this has been happening more lately. So when you guys have your radios, have mobiles on your belt, be careful not to lean against something that can push the PTT, the push to talk button. If you're wearing a lapel mic, make sure nothing is bumping into that lapel mic. Not only for officer safety reasons, that's number one, but also you don't want to say anything, anything inappropriate on the radio. And then, like I was saying previously, when we get excited and we're experiencing adrenaline, our voice is going to naturally it's going to change. So it's super, super important that you try to stay calm on the radio so I understand what you're saying. I think everybody's pretty good at that for the most part, but just try and keep that in mind. And then the other thing is when saying an address or numbers over the radio, it may not be a bad idea to say two different ways. And what I mean by that is like the subway right there at 2nd and Cooch. I'll say 101 Northwest 2nd, 101 Northwest 2nd. Because for whatever reason, the human brain, you know, it may not pick it up the first time, but if you say it, you know, the second time a different way, it may pick it up. I don't know. I was kind of skeptical of it when I would be Anderson Island dispatcher, but I quickly caught on, and to this day I still do that. So that may be something else you may want to consider. And then, any questions?
Just one comment about the hot miking. Check your DD gear. Some of us carry our radios backwards in our holders because there's something that could easily bump into the front of the radio where the push to talk is. So depending on how you have it positioned, if you have like glove pouch, your OC, something else right in front of it, that may be why you're hot miking when you twist or turn a certain way. So maybe start carrying the radio backwards. It's just something to keep in mind depending on how you set your belt up.
I've noticed in these radios, we don't have the chirp when you press the hand mic. And that's, all my agencies, we all always had the chirp. So are we choosing not to?
You're probably using newer radios than what we were using like
These chirp, I think you have to turn them on. That's
old
what.
hand-me-downs.
No, I think you can turn these on. I think. It'll cut down because you'll hear it. That you just, well, if you have an earpiece or your mic, you'll hear it go.
The other thing I forgot to mention, for those prior, who are law enforcement officers, these radios have the emergency button. However, it's deactivated. So, God forbid you're in an emergency situation and your hands are tied up, you have to, hold on. You still have to key up on the push button. Because, if you push it, it's not going to do anything. Typically, if you push it, hold on to it a few seconds, it ties up. You're given preemption, and you have an open mic for like 30 seconds or so. So your hands aren't tied up. But just a heads up, hopefully you guys aren't in that situation. But yeah. Any other questions? Okie dokie. Thank you.
Stop recording.